Welcome back, everybody. My name is Taylor Martin. This is the best Damn EDC, and today I would like to show you a brand new knife company, or new-ish knife company, and that is Vero Engineering. If you're not familiar with Vero Engineering, Joseph, the man behind it, is making some really clever, interesting, intuitive designs, such as these two knives here and this pry tool. It's just all clever. It's all brilliantly designed, and that's what he is. He's a design engineer, so you would expect some really clever stuff from him. His first three products, these three on the table, are nothing short of incredible. So with that said, I'd like to show them to you. So let's do the damn thing. So here we are with Vero Engineering, and I'm gonna start with the Prybar because I think it's the easiest to go over, and I've had it and used it the most out of all of his stuff. So we'll set the knives aside. We'll talk about the Prybar right now. This is the Vero Engineering Fulcrum, and it's a titanium pocket tool. We've talked about a bunch of them here on the channel. A lot of you ask, what are you prying? I've explained a million times that a pry tool for me is less about prying and more about a flathead that I use for quick plates and all sorts of other things. I use these as bottle openers too. I don't need a bottle opener to open a cap. I can just use this and pry a cap off a bottle if I need to. So tons of uses for these things. One of my favorite things in a pocket tool like this is a pocket clip. It just makes it a little more accessible. But what you see in a lot of these pry tools like this are bit drivers and bit wrenches, and they've just got, you know, a hex cut into them so you can use a 1/4 inch hex bit to wrench on something or tighten something down. I have literally never used any of those ever, but I can tell you that I've used this one for that a ton. So you'll notice on this pry tool, there's a pocket in the front that'll hold 2 micro bits. Those are held in place with 2 O-rings. So if you dig your finger in there and get one of these out, it can be a little difficult. There is actually a bit driver in the back side of this hidden in the clip. It's beautiful. It's magnetic retention. It works wonders. It works with these Wiha micro bits. So this one comes with a T6 and T8. You also have the option when you buy it to put a Phillips and a slotted bit in there, but you really can put any micro bits in there. So you can buy a micro bit set and swap out whatever you need. My recommendation was to take this same pocket and put one here where the Vero branding is and put 2 more bits. The trouble with that is that you've got to put O-rings under this pocket clip. I think that's okay. I don't think it would be too terribly annoying. The problem I run into is I use this for knife maintenance now, right? So I don't have to take my entire kit out just to tighten a pivot screw or a body screw or whatever. If I need to adjust something, I can just pull this out of my pocket, pop one of those bits in there, and I'm going to town. And T6 and T8 are really great. Those are pretty universal for knives, but some of my knives use T10, some of them use totally different hardware. It would be nice to have all the way up from T6 to T10 and maybe a Phillips. So that's really the only bit of feedback I have on this thing, or critique if you want to call it that. I wouldn't necessarily call it that. This is the Vero Fulcrum, and these are $85. They are available on his website right now, and you can see right there, this is number 63 out of 100. So they are serialized, and this is run number 2. He told me he may or may not bring them back, but we'll see. I don't know. Really like this tool. It's been in my pocket every day for 2, 3, 4 weeks. I don't know, whenever he sent this to me. And that actually came in the package with this. You'll notice that I have number 63 of 100 in the Vero Impulse. And this was the first knife that Joseph designed and had made by Bestech. And this is the first knife I've held from Bestech. And I'd say the fit and finish is quite good. I'd say it's pretty close, if not right there, even with Wiha. It's everything is just tight, smooth, action's great. I've had no issues with blade play, blade centering, nothing. This thing is rock solid, just straight out of the box. So the first thing you'll notice is that this is a flipper, but it doesn't have that extended flipper tab that you see on a lot of different flipper knives. And a lot of people find that annoying because they can stick out, they just kind of get in the way sometimes. It's something that doesn't really bother me, but it's something that I've heard critiqued by other reviewers, people in the Discord and in the comments. Flipper tabs just get in the way, they're annoying, blah, blah, blah. Joseph agreed and decided to design something a little different. This is very similar to, I'd say, the Smock, because it's also a flipper, and it just has that inline flipper tab. It's very streamlined, there's no accidental deployments, and there's also no misfires. This thing is just perfect almost every single time. The leverage you get with this sort of downward flipper tab is perfect. The fidget factor on this knife is just through the roof. But let's talk about specs real quick. You can see just right off the bat, this is a pretty big knife. Overall length is 8.8 inches. It is a Tonto with an M390 blade. That blade is 3.5 inches long with a high saber flat grind. And one thing to note is that when you just kind of glance at this, you would think that that tip is more like a Sabenza Tanto, in that this full bevel here is actually the actual bevel, but it's not. This is your secondary bevel. If you can see that, it's actually way down here. So that's not a full bevel. But that's just something that at first glance, you'd think that maybe that's the full bevel. It's not. You've got this nice big swedge up here. I just love the lines on this knife. It is very futuristic, and that's kind of polarizing for a lot of people. For me, I loved it the minute I saw it. It just does feel a little weird in the hand because I'm sometimes not sure how to grip it. Like I want to grip it up here, but it just doesn't feel right with your 3 fingers gripping tighter than your index. The way that you hold this knife does kind of give you this really far back grip, which is a little different, but I've gotten used to it. I really like it. And then you'll notice there's a little pocket here. So it's not all the way through. It's not a hole, but it is a milled pocket so that you can spidey flick. And it is very, very easy. You can see that came out very slow. It does not take a lot of effort to get this knife to fly open. And it's not that the detent is not very strong. It's just that when you break that detent, this thing just kind of flies out. So you can see how easy it is to spidey flick this knife. It does take a little getting used to. It's a little different than the other knives that I typically spidey flick, but it's very easy and it just wants to close very quickly. I've actually tightened this pivot down a lot. It does fall shut, but I had to tighten it a little more because I've cut my thumb about 6 or 7 times because this thing is a finger guillotine. So I'm a little gun shy because I have cut my hand so many times with it. I tighten that pivot down just to slow down the action just a little bit, but it just feels great, flies open. The one complaint, honestly, the only complaint I really have about this knife at all is the pocket clip. So it's actually got a really clever design. This is a very long screw that goes all the way through into the clip and it's held in place. There's like a little pin that seats in the pocket clip to kind of keep it straight. So there are 2 complaints with the pocket clip. I love the way that it's attached, but that does allow for it to have a little bit of wiggle, which is a little annoying, but that is the least of my concerns. The bigger thing is the shape of it. So the way that I mentioned how you have to grip this thing before is back behind this little flipper tab, right? You can grab up on here if you need to choke up, but you have no real protection from sliding forward. So you really want to grab this thing back here behind that flipper tab. And when you do, this clip just pushes right into the ball of my hand, right in between my index and middle finger, and it's there. And I hate when people call feeling the clip in your hand a hot spot. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's a hot spot. This one is a little bit of a hot spot because you've got that sharp corner on 2 sides pushing right there into the ball of your hand. And it's there, it's noticeable. You're not gonna overlook or forget that it's there. And it just does get a little annoying, but you can readjust your grip a little bit and totally avoid that whole thing. But that's just the only complaint I've had about this knife. So that is the Vero Impulse, beautiful, clean knife. And if you want one, they are $285, but unfortunately they are not in stock right now. He's only doing small runs of them because he's a small maker and he can only have so many made at a time. For the next knife, I think he's doing another pre-order in May, something like that. All you need to do is go to his website. You can sign up for the newsletter or follow him on Instagram at Vero Engineering, and you'll be able to know when he's dropping these again. You can find them from time to time on secondary. I ended up purchasing mine directly from Joseph, but the Synapse is the smaller version. There was a pre-order for this one just a couple of months ago, and this one will actually ship out in May. And after that, I think he's doing another run of this one. But this is, for all intents and purposes, the same knife, just smaller with slightly different features. As you can tell, they are very, very similar knives with most of the same features, but a few things have been changed. Forgot to mention that one is on bearings. This one is also on bearings, if you couldn't tell by that action. But the big difference here is that you don't have a full titanium handle. Well, you do, but you have the scales on the outside. These come in red, black, or blue G10, or like this, and an OD green micarta. And that takes this knife from a full frame lock to a bolster lock, which again, for all intents and purposes, is the same. The big difference you're gonna get from a bolster lock and a frame lock is that it's sometimes a little more difficult to fit your thumb in there to unlock it. Not a big thing, but it is just a little more, something you've got to be a little more deliberate with. Whereas this one, you've got this entire bar here, the whole lock bar you can push on to unlock the knife. With this bolster lock, you've just got this little tab right there. So that is one of the major differences. The other big difference is the blade shape and the blade size. So your overall length on this knife is much shorter at 7.35 inches. Your blade length is 3.2, and instead of a tanto, you're getting a drop point blade. And this is just another finish. So you've got this stonewash finish, but also a hand rub finish that you can opt for when you purchase the knife. This is an upgrade. The stonewash is one of those standard finishes, but I do prefer this blade shape quite a bit more. It's a much cleaner look. It's just a little more traditional and classy. It makes it look a little less futuristic. So you've still got clean lines, but this one, for some reason, that tanto just kind of gives it that spaceship look. This one just looks a little more traditional and classic. You still get an M390 blade with that high saber flat grind, and you're still running on bearings, still manufactured by Bestech. You get the same clip. As far as the position of the clip on this one, it does not push into my hand nearly as bad. Because the knife is a little smaller, your diameter here or your width is a little smaller, it just kind of seats a little differently into the hand, and this clip just kind of goes right up into this little pocket here, and I don't feel it nearly as much. With a lot of hard use, I could see that probably being a hot spot, but for this one, it just kind of fits a little better in my hand, and that doesn't bother me nearly as much. And it seems he fixed the wiggle of the pocket clip. This one doesn't move at all. But this one is a prototype, so I've not really carried it or used it a ton. I just wanted to get my hands on it so I could show you guys the Synapse, because this one is honestly my favorite of the two. It's a better size for me. It's a better shape. I like the looks of it a little more. I'm a sucker for anything in OD green micarta. I really also like this finish on the bolster. This one right here, the Impulse that I have, is actually a Cerakoted version. So you've got black Cerakoted hardware and a gray Cerakoted handle. And that's not typical for these. This was just a custom run that he did recently. But the finish on this, I really like that stonewashed titanium and that OD green micarta. And I opted for the one that I purchased. I opted for a stonewashed blade. So I think that's gonna look really, really great. And I honestly can't wait to get my hands on mine in May. I really wish it was out now. The other thing that he said he's gonna change, since this is a prototype, there are a few things that are off that they've revised in the final version, such as the lockup geometry. This one is just a little loose. It's got a little bit of lock rock, and that's, he said, because he swapped some blades between different prototypes to show off different finishes to different people. So the geometry on this one's just a little off, so there's a little rock in it. But the other thing that he changed is the position of the milled pocket here. He moved it down for the final version to give you a little more leverage, because up here it's just a little tall, it's a little high up, so it is a little harder to hit, but man, this thing just flies open every time. I honestly cannot wait to get my hands on the Synapse production model that I ordered back in January, I guess it was. This is just a sweet little knife, and I like this thing a lot. But this is the Vero Engineering Synapse. It's $295. Again, I think he's doing another pre-order in May. It starts at $295. It goes up if you want different finishes, such as blade finish. You can get this hand rub if you want to pay a little bit extra. But man, really sweet knife, really, really great stuff. And I'm honestly looking forward to whatever Joseph does in the future, because he's really made a name for himself with two knives and a pry tool. These are all really, really great designs, very clever designs, and I am a huge fan. But yeah, I just cannot wait for the Synapse to be in my collection. So there you go. I have these two that I purchased. He sent this, but he sent this in the last package that he sent, which is another Vero Engineering Fulcrum. If you want to know how to win this, there's a link down below to the Instagram post, which is a giveaway for this pry tool. So to go to that Instagram post, read the rules, enter to win a Vero Fulcrum. That's going to do it for this video. If you found it helpful and you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that thumbs up button down below and subscribe to see more stuff like this in the future, and hit that notification bell so you're notified when I upload new videos. If you want to support what I'm doing here, while I don't have affiliate links for Vero Engineering, honestly, one of the things that you can do that helps this channel is support the companies that help support this channel. All ships rise with rising tides, and what that means is if you help support those companies, we all grow together. So just help support these small makers. They're doing really incredible stuff. So all that's going to be linked down below. You can also go to patreon.com/bestmedc if you want to support me directly, or my store, Carry Commission. You can go to carrycommission.com or carry.best to buy gear and merch directly from me. I promise I will be restocking the store soon. I promise. Anyway, you can follow us around the web. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at bestmedc. There is now a Facebook group and a Discord server. It's all linked down below. Join, follow, so you can keep up to date with things, even when I'm not uploading videos here, especially in these times. You can follow and know what's going on with the channel in those places. But with that said, and until next time, carry on.